Hi there, this is Dr. Kuykendall, and today we have Trevor here with us, and we are going to talk about some of the solutions that I've found in over 10 years of practicing and thousands of patients of what you can do to help yourself break an anxiety attack and at least get it to settle down a little bit more. And these are very much related to functional medicine and functional neurological approaches to doing so. So it's really important to know that if you work with the brain directly innervates and connects to all the different parts of your system. And so if you have an issue with your system feeling really overwhelmed, you can get your nervous system to settle down and to calm. Now, always as a caveat, always check and work with your doctor to find out, what some of the deeper underlying issues are. But typically the deepest underlying issues with most people is a blood sugar and oxygen depletion in the body, and then just chronic stress on the nervous system starts to fatigue your endocrine system, which the medical community calls the HPA, or hypothalamic pituitary adrenal system, and then it fatigues because this constant cortisol. The body was never meant to do this just on and on and on type of approach. So it's really important to know that there's ways to calm this down, because this is a huge community, and outside for yourself in the world, this is really important to know that there is different things that we can do. So let's talk about step one. So with most people, cranial nerve, we're going to talk a little bit about cranial nerves, but cranial nerves are actually the nerves that innervate from your brain into your eyes, into your nose, into the sensation of the face and motion of the face, and your shoulders moving, and the ability of you to swallow and chew. And so I don't want to get too much involved in this video. We've got another video where we broke that down a lot more, but I want to show you actually how do you break this. And so one of the things that you can do, and I'm going to give you a little list of things here, but one of the most powerful things you'll do is you'll actually do convergence. Now, a lot of people, off camera we were talking, and Trevor gets diplopia, which is a little bit of double vision. And that double vision is where your eyes that are controlled by different cranial nerves are not working together, right? A lot of people would see this in college. If your buddy got too drunk, you would notice one eye actually, what's called lateral strabismus, but it laterally decussates and the eye gets weak, right? Or if you see people with neurological injury, and what it looks like, if you can see it on this camera, is when you bring in the eye comes in and converges, but it actually weakens. It comes back out. So you bring it in and it weakens. And so to make it very simple for you at home, we're not going to try to tell you how to test it right now, but what you can do is actually bring your eyes in and hold, and then bring them out, and then bring them in and hold. And this is called convergence. And bring them out and then hold. And you do this slowly, If you feel it's too much weight, it's almost like being in the gym, you're doing too much, you just go a little further out. So the distance, if I was looking towards Trevor, you'll see you can bring it in about here, about a couple inches away. You should be able to see a solid dot. If you're seeing double vision, go out a little further from the head. So this is a very powerful way. Why you're like, this doesn't make sense when it comes to anxiety attack, but the reason it makes sense is because cranial nerve 2, 3, and 4 innervate parts of the brain. If you get them working together, it'll start to settle down things. Another one you can do that's more direct would be breath. So in this one, we would have I want you to breathe in for the count of 5 seconds. So breathe in, 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 4, 5, and then out for the count of 8. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. 4. And the reason you would just repeat this, you're slowing your breath down. And the reason you're repeating, you're increasing a few seconds, 3 to 4 or 5 seconds. It's not a mathematical science. And your exhale is longer, puts you into a more parasympathetic tone. And that parasympathetic tone is exactly what you want. You want your body to feel more calm and relaxed. And so this works even if you're going to go do a big presentation, or you have a conversation that you need to have with your kid or a loved one where you're stressed out about it. This will put you in a more, I'm more relaxed, right? We'll get into the emotional aspects later, but right now, breath is key. This is why you hear the king of it all, right? Eckhart Tolle talks about breath all the time. So that's a way to do parasympathetic tone, which is the rest and digest tone of the body, through breath. Now, the next one would be cranial nerve 9 and 10. This is the glossopharyngeal and the vagus nerve. Remember we talked in another video, there was 12 cranial nerves. The vagus nerve is the biggest, most important. If I only had one thing to do with you and you had an anxiety thing, I am an expert in the anxiety world because I personally had it. I went through terrible, terrible things trying to find out what would actually help me with my anxiety. And I'm not really proud of saying that I was an expert in it because it was terrible. And a lot of times I thought I was just going to die, you know. It was very scary. I went to doctor after doctor, didn't know what to do. But these are some of the very neurologically and science-based approaches I've seen with working thousands of patients over the years that have worked well. So what you're going to do here is stimulate cranial nerve 9 and 10. So what does that look like? Well, what that looks like is you can't see it off camera, but you're actually going to curl your toes, right? You're going to hold a Kegel, right, for you, which is the muscles that were going to stop urination. So if you're using the restroom and you want to stop urinating, hold those muscles at the base of the sacrum, right? And I want you to tickle the roof of your mouth and tickle the roof of the mouth and then relax, right? And then I want you to curl the toes again, hold the muscles that allow you to stop urinating, tickle the roof of the mouth, and then relax. Now, you don't need to tap on the head, but because of years of doing this, I know that if I do this, this will actually help him more. I'm actually tapping a part of the brain called the postcentral gyrus of the premotor cortex. So this integrates the information more powerfully. It's a way of, it's like me, if I touched his arm and just put my hand on his arm, after a while, he's going to forget about me on his arm. Or his socks. He's not thinking about his socks right now on his feet, because there's a part of the brain called the reticular activating system that keeps you from being a schizophrenic. If you don't have that reticular activating system working properly, what'll end up happening is you're going to hear all the sounds of the refrigerator, you're going to feel the pressure of your socks, my arm on your hand, and you'll just be like, I can't handle this, let's get out of this process, right? So when we do this, it brings the balance back, and that's really important. Another way you could do it is using a laser, or this is a lesser expensive device where it's using light, and this is red and far infrared. And so instead of just having a red light here, right, we actually have a flickering red light, and you can't really see it so well, I don't think, on the camera. However, the flickering is another way of saying, hey, brain, hey, you know, be aware of this, be aware of this. So when we're tapping here, when we're dealing with any of this neurological stuff, it's very, very powerful to do so. It's much better than just putting your hand on something. So we now have done cranial nerve 9 and 10, which is, you know, a little bit of tickling of the roof of the mouth and doing some work with sacrum, right? Sacral nerves. What we're going to do now is actually want to show you, you can actually gag and gargle, right? And patients always thought this was so funny. But gagging and gargling, the ability, the gagging part or actually gargling water fires up those cranial nerve 9 and specifically cranial nerve 10 muscles, right, that innervate, right? In cranial nerve 10, vagus nerve innervates your lungs, your heart, your diaphragm, your entire digestive system. This is your primary parasympathetic nerve of your entire body. It's called the Great Wanderer. It's so important. So you take your toothbrush, or you take a little tongue depressor like this, and if you don't have them, you can get these at a local coffee shop or a local store where you can get the little tongue depressors, and just put them in the mouth and just allow yourself to just a little bit of a gagging reflex will actually stimulate the vagal nerve innervation of the brain and also the heart, the lungs, the digestive, and this is very powerful. It looks silly, right? But this works very well. Another thing you can do is take a little bit of water here, so just a small amount of water. So go ahead, and we're just going to have him gargle, okay? So gargle for me. Beautiful. And then swallow. Now, what we can do is we can actually have you gargle. We can have you curling the toes and holding a Kegel, or that muscle that keeps you from stopping the urination, all at once. This is called layering, right? Let's do one more. And swallow. Beautiful. And this looks really silly, but this is a common thing as you age where people can't gargle. They actually aspirate and choke on food. It's a serious thing. A lot of your kids with brain injuries and autism and OCD, people struggle with this stuff. And so this is a simple way to do this. And you don't necessarily want to wait until you're having a terrible anxiety attack. If you will do this a little bit each day, a little bit of these things, they will literally calm your nervous system. You'll see less and less of this. And then it's important to work with a functional medicine practitioner or some type of functional practitioner that can tell you this is the nutrition you need to eat and this is the dietary. And you can eliminate this anxiety very quick because it's not a diagnosis like anxiety is caused by this one thing. And if medicine doesn't have a diagnosis or a specific cause, there's no treatment. So for me, I was going from doctor to doctor and struggling and really terrified because there's no diagnosis. There's no, like, what do we do here? And so I was really stressed. So we would take antidepressants, and I was on imipramine and Zoloft and Buspar and Valium, and to the point I couldn't even tie my shoes, and I was a 19-year-old kid. That is not the way to start your life, by the way. So the point is, in Life Empowered, is to empower you to do what you need to do to empower yourself and your family. So these are some really simple, powerful things. Another thing you can do is actually you can put your left fingers right over your carotid artery reflex. So there, yep. And you can actually you just basically hold this, and let's do it like this. Put your thumb there, and I want you to touch over your left eye. Good. Now, you don't want to push hard or anything, but actually pushing over these has a very powerful effect on the brain. And I'm not going to get into a whole lot of why, other than try it for yourself at home. If you're having anxiety, you just hold this for about 30 seconds, and you can actually pulse it a little bit, but you're just stimulating this area, and this has a very powerful effect on your parasympathetic nervous system. Does that make sense? Okay. When we get into, you can relax there. When we get into the neurology of this, it makes sense, but it's way overwhelming for people to hear all this. You can look it up yourself or send me some messaging about how is it related. But I just want you to know, like, what are the cold, hard facts of what you can do, right? So we can do cranial nerve artery stimulation, which is the carotid artery, I should say. Or we can also do facial immersion, where you just take your sink or something in the house, put cold water in it, and actually put your face in the water. And, just hold your breath for, 20 seconds or 10 seconds, whatever's comfortable. And then pull your head out, dry your face off. Do that a few times. This is a very powerful way of calming your autonomic nervous system and your sympathetic nervous system down, right? And then you'll start to feel more calm again. That's really powerful. Another simple technique is to use, I would typically say, smell and sound, because they both affect the temporal lobe of the brain, which are on the sides. These are the parts that affect the adrenal system, right? Many, many other things, but smell and sound and the adrenals are on the sides, right? You got the parietal brain, the occipital brain, the frontal cortex. This is the temporal lobe. And so basically find a good essential oil that you like. Specifically, lavender is really good because it crosses the blood-brain barrier. But you just put some drops in your hand and rub it together and just smell. And this is one of the few things I tell people that you can put over your carotid arteries and even over your wrists, right? Because it goes directly into your bloodstream. You don't want to use synthetic chemicals because it goes directly in your bloodstream. But if you're using lavender, it's actually a healthy thing that can actually calm your nervous system. Rub it on your chest, rub it on your carotid arteries, but smell, and that smell stimulates the temporal lobe. It's really powerful to do. That's why, the essential oil business has been so big and taken off. And that's one of the big things. There's two other things that are very simple, very powerful to help with anxiety, and that is actually taking a little bit of lemon or lime and putting it in a glass and holding it in the mouth for a second. Now, not only does it stimulate the hydrochloric acid production, which is a good thing, right? Most people very, very rarely are going to have any indigestion or irritation due to taking a little bit of lemon juice in the body. You don't even have to swallow it, but it's the stimulation of that nervous system response through cranial nerve 9 on down to the stomach to produce parietal cell acid to production from those cells. And so just taking a little bit of that lemon or lime juice in the mouth can really help also affect the parasympathetic nervous system tone. And finally, right, as one of these really powerful solutions is just taking your fist and just tapping over the base of the occiput here, okay? And even on the spine. Now, in the chiropractic neurology world, it's important to know that this is your entire fuse box. You've got the cervical spine, you got the thoracic, and then you got the low spine, that's the lumbar. Well, all of the upper, which is the neck and a suboccipital area, and the lower, which is the sacrum at the very base of your spine, this is a fuse box. And this fuse box at the base here is all of your parasympathetic nervous system, right? And those innervate and connect to your sacrum and your reproductive organs and your elimination parts of the body and the ovaries and the uterus and the lower colon, all that stuff. And then you've got the cervical area. So when you're tapping over these, what the point of it is to stimulate parasympathetic. So it allows your system to be able to calm down. Now again, this is not the end-all, be-all, but these are some powerful neurological tools I used in the office every day in a decade of working with thousands that I found worked for myself, but also others to really, really help you calm your nervous system down. And when you do, you can start to take your power back. You can start to take your health back. The next step of doing this is not only knowing some of the neurological approaches, but to know the nutritional and dietary and have specifically somebody take you by the hand, walk you through the process. If you really need some support, I work with people all over the world through the amazing ability of working with the internet. So know that it's not hopeless, that you're not, stuck, that you have everything you need. You just have to reach out to the right people. And I'm here if you're ever interested. And I will talk to you in the next video.